Thank you, Jenny. For those I haven't yet met, I'm going to say a quick hello. My name is Jamie, and I've been part of this church for just over 2 years. And it's my job this morning to get us started on our 4-part series through October, which is titled Ekklesia. Ekklesia. Now, I didn't actually sneeze. Ekklesia is the title of these series, following on from the vision talks. And Ekklesia is from the Greek, and it literally means the called out ones. I've been given 20 minutes to do this, and just to show you that you can trust me on my word, 20-minute timer going. So when that goes off, we're all standing on our feet to pray, okay? My children are having a great time over in St. Helens, so I'm freed up not to worry about them, but to worry about you, and to hope that whether you're a complete novice and you've never really been in a church before, or whether you are waiting to hear about what the Greek of Ephesians 1:8 is, Clive, whatever you are on that spectrum, I hope you'll come away encouraged and knowing a little more about what the church is. And to do that, how better to start than a game? But before we do that, 3 points. I think we've got them on the slide. These are the 3 points. If you're taking notes, this is what the church is. Summarized as groups who are adopted, remembered, and renewing. So if you write notes, and that's useful for you, adopted, remembered, and renewing. But let's go to that game. So I want you to say what you see. So first image up. What's this? Yeah, it's kind of my living room on a bad day. Hands up, okay, fair enough. That's a kid's birthday party, brilliant. Second one, what's this? Nice and loud. Wedding, yes, you're getting louder. I like this, that's good. Last one, how about this? What's this? Storm, very good. Now, I know some of you are sticklers for detail, and I've seen your faces, a bit skeptical. You're saying, on a technicality, Jamie, none of those is really a kid's party, a wedding, or a storm. It's actually just pictures that suggest those things. You're just showing me pictures of effects. Well, keep that idea in mind as we come to the next slide. What's this? We should have 6 different pictures up. Now, these are from my camera roll from the last year. These are 6 different places I've been on a Sunday or a midweek. What do they have in common? At the top left, that big sports hall, brand new sports hall, Live Village in South Africa, which we heard about in the prayers, and we'll hear about a bit later. What's that got in common with that next one? Bottom left, where I was in May. This is a Catholic church that's Syriac speaking, a building built in the 1930s. What's that got in common with that middle one, that picture? Beautiful fresco church in St. Leonard's, Malvern, if ever you've been in there. What's that got in common with a rural church in Devon, where I was helping my friend be ordained priest back in June? And what does that have in common with that far right picture, a Tezo-speaking church with a tin roof in Uganda? Or even, what does that have in common with that small little picture at the very bottom? Oh, you can't see that. That's edited in a funny way. Which was a picture of me, dressed as a shepherd, sat there with my children at the nativity service at Christmas. What do all these things have in common? Well, I think if you're brand new, I think there's a really simple answer to the question, what is church? Because most people will come to know church not by sitting in here, right? We are a great group, but we are a minority, right, this morning in Worcester. Most people who are in Worcester are out there, right? They're shopping, they're going for brunch. They aren't sitting here listening to me. You see, most people find the church like Pachomius. Pachomius, you may know or you may not know, lived 1,700 years ago. He was an Egyptian. He was nobody's hero. He was a young man, and he was already a criminal with a record. And because of that, he was conscripted to the army. He and a group of prisoners were taken to a new city, and he was preparing as a nervous 20-year-old man to face the rest of his life doing something he dreaded. And as he stood in his cell on that first night, something arrived on his doorstep. In fact, not just something, but some people. A group were going down the corridors of the prison, knocking on the doors, handing out food and drink, and encouraging those who were arriving for the first night. And Pachomius, he turns to those that were in his cell, and he said to his cellmates, "Why are these people so good to us when they do not know us?" Pachomius said, "Why are these people so good to us when they do not know us?" And someone turned to him and said, "They're Christians, and they treat us with love because of God in heaven." And that moment was the turning point for Pachomius. He was so lavished with love, so undeserving as he was, that he committed to follow the person that these Christians were following. And Pachomius actually had an amazing life after that. He was the one who founded every single Christian community that's ever existed, takes its roots from Pachomius. Every house share that Christians have had, every monastery, every rule of life. Because encountering the church for most people will mean this: being loved by people they don't yet know. It's simple, it's so simple, and I don't want to complicate it. That's what it is. It's people coming to know God's love through God's people. But there's an absolutely huge warning sign before you think it's that simple. This guy's got a PhD. It's never going to be that simple. No, the simple answer is definitely true. It's definitely true. Church is being loved by people you don't yet know. But we can fall into that trap that we were set up to do during our little game at the start. Because a storm is certainly noticed by fallen down trees. But if you said that every storm is just trees that lie horizontally across a road, well, you haven't really understood what a storm is. And if you think that a church is simply people who are nice to other people, well, you're in for a shock. You see, much as we'd like to be, we aren't actually united by any worldly commonality. We're not a church here this morning because we share character traits. We don't dress the same, we don't vote the same, we don't think the same, we don't earn the same, and we don't, in our heart of hearts, actually all like each other that much a lot of the time. We're not particularly good, we aren't naturally brave, and we're not the best behaved children or the best looking adults, save for Rich Johnson, the vicar who gets mistaken for being a model on one of his ubiquitous train journeys back from London. And if you're new and you don't understand that joke, you can go back and look at the last couple of weeks' talks. You see, the secret to what the church is, once we've got beyond the encounter with Christians, is set up for us beautifully by a man called St. Paul in a letter he wrote to a church in a city called Ephesus. I don't know whether you've come across the Bible before, but if you've never read it before, we're in the kind of back 7/8 of the way along. It's right at the end in the New Testament. And St. Paul, he's someone who's come to find faith in Jesus. And he's writing to a small group of people, scattered set of people in little towns, villages around who gather in people's homes and behind shops in the city of Ephesus. And he starts in a way, and maybe it's just so kind of, we're used to this idea of thinking that it washes over us. We hear it, don't we? You know, a letter from Paul, I'm an apostle, I'm writing to God's holy people, all praise to him, it's spiritual blessings, and we think, yeah, okay. So being a Christian, yeah, it's like what I thought. It's being blessed, and it's all happy, shiny stuff. Isn't the church just a good club to be in? But I wonder if you saw what was in verse 5. And I think we've got it up on the screen for us. You see, a mere 30 years into the life of the church, here is what St. Paul says. God decided in advance to adopt us into his own family by bringing us to himself through Jesus Christ. This is what he wanted to do, and it gave him great pleasure. You see, if you're here visiting this morning, or you're finding faith, or you're just coming along curious, I want you to know the secret. The secret isn't that we're a common interest group. We have literally nothing in common that brings us together other than this. God has adopted us. He's made of us a ragtag bunch of people from Worcestershire, children of a divine family. Not by accident, he didn't have to, it wasn't under compulsion, But he did it deliberately, deciding to bring people to himself by sending Jesus to live among us, to make us brothers and sisters. And not only deliberately, but with delight. Did you see that at the end of the verse? Now, Jess was praying in the prayers for Live Village. It's one of our mission partners. It's run by somebody who used to be a member of this church, a guy called Jono. And a group of 11 of us was so privileged to go out over August to go and see the work they're doing. 180 children taken into families where a mum will love the child with deliberate kindness and delight. And I've seen a lot, you've seen my camera roll, but it was nothing like I'd ever encountered before. And here's the story that particularly moved me and I want to share with us this morning. See, Jono told us of one particular child on the village. When they arrived, they were so small and so physically malnourished that it took this little child the longest by far to get from his house to school. And when they got to school, eventually, one of the last children there, they'd grown up so deprived of love that they would cry and cry and cry for the first hour of school until they eventually settled. This littlest, most heartbroken child, though, was deeply loved and consistently cared for by the village. And month by month and year by year, this spirit of fear and abandonment, a background of deprivation, well, it was replaced by the spirit of adoption, of knowing that somebody delights in them. And as they grew in their status as beloved and chosen, they grew in their knowledge of the love of God too. The reason that the mum was doing this is because she loved Jesus. And so this little child grew bigger and more confident. And with tears in his eyes, Jono was telling us that this child is now unrecognizable. See, where before they even struggled to walk to school, they're now competing for the school in their sports. They're one of the fittest, strongest, most engaged. And this child has become a model for others, an embodiment of what is possible. That's an earthly picture, a kind of analogy for the gift and the power of God's spiritual adoption of each of us. And the good news is it wasn't just available for those people in the city of Ephesus in 60 AD. No, you see, it's available to each of us in every generation. And it's because of bad news, really. It's because in every generation, God sees the vows that we humans make. You see, we love making promises and putting commitments to faithless things. Why do we do it? Why are we like that? But we are. God knows that we are. We hope in our own strength. We hope in our appearance. We hope in success. But it's time limited. It's volatile. And God asks, and he asks in each generation, will you leave behind those things that you've trusted to raise you? Because they're no parents. And instead, will you abandon those things because they don't speak to you? They can't hear you. Instead, will you come to God to hear those words of life? Dear child, turn to me, for I delight in you. And if you've come here this morning and you feel like you want that, you want to be adopted and loved by God, well, one of us team, it's anyone with these lanyards with a little green strip at the bottom, we'll be around afterwards, and we would love to pray with you. My story is I've had 20 amazing, up and down, but spiritually blessed years being part of God's family. And I spent this whole last week reflecting, as I've journeyed, what is the church? And I've been trying to think, okay, sure, there's nothing that we have in common, but as we are together, what's our family resemblance? What are we becoming like? You see, in my earthly family, we're called the Klairs. That's my surname. You notice the Klairs. You know, we've got a way of relating to each other, the way we hang out, sometimes the way I dress all our children in matching outfits. You know, you'd say, oh, okay, you guys, you're a family. And after 20 years of spotting the resemblance of God's family, I think this is what I'd say. I'd say, we're Christ. We're Christ. Some of you might know that I'm actually a professional church observer. I've spent a couple of years of my life researching 2 different Pentecostal churches, and then since, I found out that you can actually get paid to turn up to church. And if anyone's looking for that secret, come talk to me about a vocation as an ordained minister in the Church of England. But as I've become a professional church observer, I've noticed that what ties us all together is not actually resemblance. It's not family resemblance. You see, no one is trying to take on Jesus' mannerisms. No one is actually going around saying, "Truly, truly, I say to you." No one is growing beards after a certain fashion to look like Jesus. No one is cultivating Jesus' interest in crops and sparrows and wild flowers. Instead, see what Paul says in our passage. See, towards the very end, he says the church is us. It's Jesus' body. In a strange way, it's the fullness of Jesus Christ who fills everything in every way. You see, this is what St. Paul says to a group of people, remember, who'd never met the guy. They'd never met Jesus when he walked around on earth. Ephesus was miles and miles, hundreds of miles from Galilee where Jesus walked, lived, ate, and taught. And yet, St. Paul trusts that this Ekklesia, this called out community in Ephesus, it would somehow become the fullness of Jesus' very body. Now, I know some of you are here for theology, and so I've got one theologian to share with us. A very wise old Christian who was writing about 70 years ago, he was reflecting on what it means for the church to be Jesus' body. There's a guy called John Knox, and he says this: Christ is present in the church in the same way that a man is present in his body. Without a body, you couldn't belong to the realm of time and space of nature and history, and neither could Christ. The church isn't one of his bodies or a part of his body, it is his body, if by body we mean something human and historical, something made of human substance, of flesh and heart. You see, the goal of us as we become church isn't to resemble Jesus like we're trying to call back a memory of someone distant. It says Jesus is present still. And did you see that on our passage? We are united to him. We are literally remembered. We're joined back on to Jesus. And that's what we got to celebrate this morning so wonderfully with Nellie. She's been remembered into God's family, joined to Jesus. As the water went down over her, it was like she went down in Jesus' death, which has bought us a freedom from sin. And as the water ran up and she came back up, it's like the rising of Jesus from the dead, a victory over death. The church, you see, it's earthly and heavenly. It's the uniting of two in Christ. That's the connection between the church, the incarnation, and the sacraments. And I know some of you love that stuff, and so I've put a little link on our church website on the teaching section. Click on the picture, and I've brought up a little more if you want to go into detail on that. But you see, the church, it's the remembering into a body, which we've entered by adoption in the Spirit. But finally, there's hope for a bigger picture than just our local selves. Did you catch that amazing ending? Because the hope that we have is of God's renewing. There was an amazing few verses which I'll read to us. Paul said to the church that the same power that raised Christ from the dead means that he is now at the right hand of God. He is so far above all authority or power or leader, not only in this world, but the world to come. And that's the authority that we carry. When we're called out, we're not called out onto an adventure by ourselves. We're called to have the authority and power of one who is in charge of the whole universe and the universe to come. That's who we are united with. He is our brother by adoption, but he's the ruler and the victor over every evil, injustice, wrong, and darkness. And if he is for us, church, then who could be against us? So what's next? I mean, that's some really big picture stuff that we're adopted, we're remembered, and we're part of this renewing. but 3 really practical things. If you're a guest, come back to church. We do this every Sunday here, and there may be some churches nearer you. Come along and get stuck in to get to know these people who are Jesus' love to the stranger. If you're in Worcester, I would love for you to connect with our church prayer night. We're praying together as churches in a month's time on the 2nd of November. And if you want to follow Jesus, I would love for you to come and pray with us. And we'd love to welcome you into this family and this body. But if you're able, would you like to stand? Would you like to stand? I mean, I can preach in 20 minutes, but the amazing thing is that Jesus is speaking still to his church. He has been in the past, he does in the present, and if we ask him to speak to us now, he will. And I'd love just to invite the band to come up. As I was talking with a few people this morning, this word came up that stayed with me in my spirit. And it's the word unworthy. Unworthy, a simple little word. But you're not unworthy to be here. No one's unworthy of being part of Jesus' body. That's why we're joined. He is worthy. And we're just wanting to be a part of that worthiness. And so if that's you, we would love to, there'll be some of the prayer ministry team I'm going to ask to come out to either side, to my left and to my right up the front. We'd love just to pray with you.